What is a safety plan? According to the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education, a safety plan is a prioritized written list of coping strategies and sources of support patients can use when they have been deemed to be at high risk for suicide. Patients can use these strategies before or during a suicidal crisis. Turns out that there are many types of safety plans. They are used in domestic violence situations, like, for example, having a safety plan for escaping an abusive situation. However, today, I want to go over the steps in my own suicide safety plan and will share resources you can try to get started on your own. Hi, I am Raysa, a survivor of narcissistic abuse, and I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and you are listening to Hello Trauma Brain, a podcast where I share my experiences living with complex PTSD. My hope is this podcast can help destigmatize mental health and provide support to anyone diagnosed with C-PTSD who thinks they might have it or has a loved one with this diagnosis. Quick reminder, I am not a licensed psychologist or mental health care professional, and this podcast is not meant to replace nor substitute the care of psychologists, other mental or medical health care professionals. If you think you might have complex PTSD or PTSD, please reach out to your primary care or mental health care provider. Any individuals and resources mentioned in this episode are not sponsoring Hello Trauma Brain. This episode may reference abuse, trauma, and suicidal feelings or ideation, and listener discretion is advised. Remember, you can always pause or skip this episode at any time. And now, let's get back to the episode. Hello, dear survivors, and welcome to this episode of Hello Trauma Brain. Thank you for joining me today. If you are listening on YouTube, a gentle reminder to hit the like button and subscribe to let me know this episode was helpful. Quick check-in. My anxiety is off the charts this week. I can't remember the last time that my anxiety was this bad. I want to say probably back when I was really in the abusive relationships that I was in. And at this point, I am actually very suspicious that this is something that's being brought on by the recent medications that I had to take for the trigger bite situation. Because this is like really, really unusual. And I feel like my coping skills are just not doing the trick or not bringing the relief that they usually do. And it's just not sustainable. Like, I might feel it for like a very, very brief period of time and it's just right back in it. So I'm hanging in by a very thin thread right now, and I'm trying to stay as calm as possible and just continue with my routine as best as I'm able. And that includes podcasting. So here I am, still feeling a lot of anxiety in my body, and just trying to show up anyway. And that's what the podcast is, right? It's basically documenting and journaling the journey. And I don't have to be anxiety free to be able to come in front of the microphone to talk. So here I am having quite a lot of anxiety still. And also I will recognize today might be the first day where I am starting to feel like it's gonna get better, and it's getting a little bit better. Like, I still get these pockets of like, oh my gosh, it's still there, but there are also pockets of like, okay, like I feel like now I can start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I feel like a few days ago there was no light. It was just, the whole thing was pitch black and very scary. And for my C-PTSD trauma brain, it's really hard to see the light when it's not there yet. So I know this will pass. It's just a matter of hanging in for long enough so I can start seeing the light that I'm hoping it's going to come at some point. So today, before I start this episode, I want to premise a few things. For starters, it's Mental Health Awareness Month, so I thought this would be an appropriate time to bring this up. And I want to acknowledge that, the intro already off the bat has the word suicide in it. So I know this is a triggering topic. I know this is something that some of you suffer and you have the suicidal ideation, the suicidal feelings. And I know in some cases, some of you might know someone who did die of suicide. And I want to start off there. I want to start off with something that I came across recently that I think is really important. I'm going to say this because I personally believe that language matters. And this is something that I even said myself. So, I'm not trying to shame anybody, but I think when there are opportunities for us to learn better ways to go about something, it's important that we take that opportunity if available. And I want to start off with destigmatizing. When people talk about someone who's died of suicide, usually the term that's used is they committed suicide. And growing up for me, I feel like, and I think the religious, I grew up Roman Catholic, so I think it was just embedded in the religion too, which is a problem. But it's a lot of shame surrounding, having suicidal thoughts, having people that, are open about being in a situation where their life was, in danger by these suicidal ideations. And also when someone has died of suicide, like people shame it and blame that person. And it's I think the committed by suicide needs to go away. And one way I saw it explained, which just makes so much sense, like when somebody has cancer, like you're not hearing people saying like, oh, they committed to cancer, or like they chose to have cancer. Like that wasn't a choice. That's something that's happening to this person. And the same thing goes for suicide. As someone who struggled with suicidal ideation, I can tell you it's almost like something is hijacking my brain, Like something gets turned off. Like I'm not choosing to have those thoughts. I don't enjoy them. It feels so scary. And I'm relieved to still be here because, quite frankly, there were some times there where I almost didn't make it to the end of the day. And I have loved ones that are also struggling with suicidal ideation, and it's terrifying. And to be shamed for something that you can't control, like think about that. I'm going to talk here from my personal experience. I'm not choosing it. I didn't ask for it. I don't have control over when those thoughts come on. And to be shamed for something I didn't choose and didn't have any say on, it's just like, I think that's something that needs to go away. And I think the best way to go about this is, compassion, empathy, understanding, having that curiosity that I was talking about last week. It can go a really long way. And I'm going to right off the bat, move on into telling you how this episode idea came on. I actually didn't intend to do this, or it wasn't a part of the plan for this month. And then one of my loved ones disclosed that they were having suicidal thoughts. And one of the things that we decided to do was work on our own suicide safety plans together, because I have seen the resources for how to create one. I've seen the steps before. I've researched it. I'm aware of it. I've recommended it to survivors I have worked with in groups, and yet I have to be the first one to admit that I had not followed my own advice. I had not created my own. I had thought about it. I was like, okay, I guess for that one I would put so and so, and I would do this, and I would put that number there. But I actually didn't put it anywhere. I didn't actually write it down anywhere. Like if I was in a crisis right now, calling 988 or reaching out to my friends would have been like about the only things I would have done. Like I didn't have a plan that I could open and just have that tell me what to do, which is such an important step. I don't know what the experience is for other people. I only know my own. But when that's happening, your brain is not functioning properly. It's just something is really hijacked up there. And to expect someone who's already dysregulated, who is in a really dark place, to think about solutions at the moment is just like, I mean, it's a bit of a very risky and impossible thing to ask. And the less thinking you have to do, the better. If there's a list, if there's an app, if there's a plan already written down that can tell you, do this right now. Just turn on the TV and put on Netflix and watch this show. That's going to increase the possibility of that person doing it, as opposed to them just not having anything laid out ahead of time. I'm also going to argue that everyone should have a suicide safety plan. Everyone. I don't believe in waiting till you're a high risk case of suicide to then work on the plan. By the time you get there, it might be too late. And if there is anything that I do not like about how the health field, and this goes for physical and for mental health, like the medical field, the approach usually is to deal with the problem once it's there. Once it's there, okay, now let's treat it. Now let's look for resources. Now let's do the coping skills. And I think prevention is so important. I don't think we should wait until someone's life is literally threatened to start doing something about it. I think it's really important for all of us to have a plan. Even if you don't struggle with suicidal ideation, you never know what's going to happen in the future. And I want to see you live through that. I want you to survive it. And I honestly, the worst that can happen is that you sit down and make the plan and you never use it. And may you never need it, honestly. But if you do need it, oh, gosh, do I want that to be there for you to save your life and to save the life of your loved one. So I was working with my loved one on this weekend. And as we were working on it, I was just like, why am I not doing an episode on this? I need to do an episode on this, to the point where I was like, I'm going to scrap what I had planned. Like, I'm going to do this right now. It's that important to me. And quite frankly, in the past, I've gotten lucky enough that without a safety plan, I still made it through. But man, I feel like my life would have been a little bit easier back then had I had something. And I want to acknowledge that this is a hard conversation. I know this is a hard topic. It's very triggering. And I think we need to talk about this, though. It's really, really important that we don't shy away from these conversations. Trust me, this is not easy for me to say publicly. Like when I hit publish on this episode, I mean, I've talked about having suicidal ideation before, but like, this feels pretty big as like in terms of something to share about me that's literally going to be out there for anyone to find. And the reason I'm recording this and I will publish it is because if we don't talk about it, it continues to be this shameful, dark thing that's a secret and nobody should talk about it, and it means something's wrong with you. And I am here to tell you, A, you are not alone if you struggle with this. B, there is nothing wrong with you. And C, you deserve help and support. And so do I. We don't have to go through this crap alone. This is serious. It can be deathly. It needs to be taken seriously, and it needs to stop being so shamed and stigmatized. I don't believe that someone who died of suicide deserves to burn in hell. I just don't. I'm not Catholic anymore, so I don't really believe in the concept of hell anyway. But even if I did, I don't think that someone who had no control into how they died, who literally had their brain hijacked to the point that happened to them, deserves to be punished for eternity. I think that's cruel. I get emotional talking about it because it really hurts. It really, really hurts. And I know that the people that are left behind, when they deal with people shaming their loved one in that way, that's gotta hurt. If you know someone who died of suicide and you got, that version of shaming your loved one for what happened to them, I'm so sorry. That's just terrible that you should have not heard that. And I got no words, Something to be said about someone who likes talking and is a podcaster when they're completely speechless. I'm here to share a few things. I will share a few things from my own plan, not the whole thing. I really want to start off by talking about what a safety plan is, and I'm gonna continue using the resource that I found online from Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education. According to their website, they're based out of Boulder, Colorado, in the U.S. They have a list of frequently asked questions that I think are very helpful to understanding what a safety plan is, etc. So the intro basically goes over what they have in the section for what is a safety plan. The only thing I didn't add there is that the plan is brief and is in the patient's own words and it's easy to read. So this is something that was written for the clinicians. However, we can learn from it. So, and next they basically go over who should have a safety plan. And I'm just going to scrap what they put in there because I stand by what I said earlier. I think anyone and everyone should have one. And sure, we can add the caveat that especially if you've dealt with suicidal thoughts, ideations, or if acts have been taken from when you have been in that place. However, I really insist that if you're a human being living in this world right now, you should have a plan for keeping yourself safe and alive. I think that's a basic human need. Like we need you here. We really do. And then it goes into how should a safety plan be done. I'm going to read this section even though it's for the clinicians because some of you listening might be in the field and you might be clinicians. And I think this is important to emphasize. And also, I'm going to read it too for the patients because that way you know what to look for in a therapist. Like if a therapist doesn't understand this or if you're working on the safety plan and these things are not happening, it can be a red flag and something you should talk to them about. And if they were to come back with defensiveness and what are you talking about? I know better than you. I'm the one who went to school for this. Perhaps the conversation needs to change to something along the lines of we need to look for a better fit. So according to this website, it says safety planning is a clinical process. Raysa is going to add to this and also a personal process that you should have for yourself. And it says listening to, empathizing with, and engaging with the patient in the process can promote the development of the safety plan and the likelihood of its use. So what I'll do is I'll read the main steps, and if you want to read what this website has in specifics for each, I'm going to link it to the show notes. But the way I'm going to go about the steps is through an app that I actually found. So stay put for a moment. The 6 steps are the following. Step 1, warning signs. Step 2, internal coping strategies. Step 3, social contacts who may distract from the crisis. Step 4, family members or friends who may offer help. Step 5, professionals and agencies to contact for help. And step 6, making the environment safe. Now, in this PDF, and I will link it, so if you want to read the specifics they have for these steps here, you will be able to. Well, this website is basically like more asking like or telling the clinicians what to ask for. Instead of going through that, I'm going to move on to an app that I found with my loved one. Actually, she recommended it to me, and I think it's brilliant and it's free. So I'm going to go ahead and move on into how I went about these main steps there. The only step I noticed they don't have in the app is the making the environment safe, which I think is an important step. And the app does have a section for other. So you would be able to add that if you want to in that section. So let me tell you what the name of the app is first. So the app is called Suicide Safety Plan, and it's I have an iPhone, so I found it on the App Store for the iPhone. I'm going to say this out loud, so I remember to do this when I'm editing the episode. I will look into whether this app is available for Android devices, and if it's not, I'm going to try to look for an equivalent that I can link for you in the show notes so you also have an option. And this app is the one that I'm using is by Inquiry Health LLC. And one thing, is because it was like the first thing that popped into my head. I was like, oh, is it going to say like suicide safety plan on my phone now, like on the apps? And the person that I was working with on this was like, actually, no, like they actually just like when you download it, you'll see just safety plan on it. And she was 100% right. It just shows up like this cross, like white cross against a blue background, and it just says safety plan. So you kind of have to click on it so you know it's related to like a suicide safety plan. So for those of you that are concerned about privacy, there is that there's that level of protection there. Once you open it up, the app is free, and it's not perfect. One thing that I'm gonna say that was a bit of a annoying downside for me, but still, I mean, the value is still there. I'm gonna use it, but at one point, like, you're not able to add, there's only so many options you can add, and what happens is, like, the keyword covers the option to select more, and eventually the option to select more just stops showing up. So I did notice that, and maybe an update, if they do an update and address that, that would be great. And I don't know if anybody who's related to this app will ever listen to this, but if they do, that'd be a cool thing to add. And maybe I'll put that on a review, actually, so that way they can actually see it and I don't have to listen to this. But anyway, let's go through the steps. The first step on the app is the warning signs. And here are some of the things that I put in for myself, in case some of you are wondering, like, what do you even put there? Actually, I'm just figuring out, there's got to be some limit to the options, because right now in my warning signs, there's options to add more, but I don't have a lot in there, so I think that's what it is. I think there's a limit. So for warning signs, I put loss of fear of death, thoughts of cutting myself, not caring if something happens to me, and I'll leave it at that. One of the early ones is almost like having the thought of, like, like, if I get sick and I die of my illness in like 2 weeks or whatever, it's almost like I stop caring. Like, there's times where thinking about that freaks me out, because I want to live and I want to, like, be older and whatever. And there's some times where I'm like, gosh, like, I'm just so tired of this. Like, honestly, like, if I go, I go. And that's an early sign for me that I need to start looking for help. So then it goes into the step 2, which is the coping strategies. And I have a few people to reach out to. I have one of my favorite shows, like, play Heartstopper immediately. I have bloopers. I get such a laugh out of watching, like, news bloopers from YouTube or, like, stuff with animals. I have walk outside, and I'm listening here, like, my preferable park, listening to music. And I'm actually, I need to do this. I want to make a playlist that has happy music that cheers me on, because quite frankly, when you look at my repeat, it's just depressing stuff that's probably going to make me feel worse. So definitely, if you go for music or shows or anything like that, like, be specific about the content. That's what I recommend, because if you start playing your most played music and it's very dark and it's just going to lower the mood even more, I definitely say stay away from those playlists, and that's something I have to do for myself too. Also, on the app, which I don't think, they don't list it on this PDF, but on the app it has reasons to live, which I love this step. And basically, I'm listing all the people that need me, and actually you are all in there. You're all chunked together as podcast listeners need me. And I also have, like, future people that I can help, like, they need me too. And I basically have those as my reasons to live. Probably think of more than what I have here right now, but yeah. Then it goes into contacts, and here I know in my particular plan, like, I know some of these people are already in other sections anyway, like in the coping strategies, but I actually am listing them, and the app lets you list their phone number. And in that section, I actually ended up adding the mental health crisis line, because this app has a crisis tab where it has an emergency number, but it happens to be 911. Which is useful. However, 988 is the emergency mental health crisis line. And a little trick here, if you add that to the contacts, then it shows up on the crisis. Basically, you can click them from the crisis tab and it just immediately calls them. And they also have a text. The app has automatically a call helpline. I'm actually realizing right now that it does have a call helpline. It might be 988. It doesn't tell you the number, so I haven't clicked on it. But for myself, just to be sure, I added it anyway, so it might be a duplicate. It does have a crisis text line linked already to it, which I also like. And the crisis line also has a find urgent care and find emergency departments search option, which I think is brilliant. Now back to the plan. The last step they have is places for distraction. And here I listed a few places that I love, coffee shops, a park that I like walking that's nearby, a movie theater. I have a Zoom chat with people that I can reach out to. For this one, I intentionally picked places where people are there. So I think being surrounded by people is really important when you're going through this. And yeah, then they have the other section. And in the other section, this was a suggestion from the person I was doing this with. They wrote, click on guide and read through. And that's because on the app, there's a guide tab and it has an overview on suicide. It has a section on coping, and I'll read you some of the subheadings for what they have in there. It says, promise not to do anything right now. Follow your safety plan. Avoid dangerous substances and objects. Reach out. Do the opposite of how you feel. Problem solve. I think, quite frankly, I think what I find helpful about this is when you start reading, like, it gets your brain focused on something else. And it can kick you off from the jungle mumble mess that's happening inside your head. It has a tab for recovering that has other subheadings like reach out for help, make a schedule, take care of yourself, identify signs of suicidal thoughts, and things to avoid. And I will read the ones that are here. Like it says, being alone. And like I stress, like going to a public place is a good way to counter that. Avoid alcohol and drugs. Avoid doing things that make you feel worse, like playing depressing music, which is something that I would usually do, but I should not be doing it if I'm experiencing that. And then it says ruminating about suicide, which is a tough one to avoid when it's just, when it's rumination. But again, I think reading this stuff, I think there's something to it, even if some of the stuff is not 100% helpful, or you're like, this is not even applicable to me, or like, how the hell are they planning me to do that? I think the concept of just getting you reading something can be helpful in and of itself. And there's a safety plan section that has some more explanations of what you can put in the different sections. There's making environment safe, which is basically step 6 from the PDF I was reading earlier, but they have it as a section on the guide as opposed to an actual step. And honestly, like, I think that's something that you can put on the guide part, where in the plan it says other. Also, it has resources, so there's different guides linked to this, and like a WikiHow on how to cope with suicidal thoughts. There's a link on metanoia, which apparently is, if you are thinking about suicide, read this first. And then it says help guide, helping someone who is suicidal. And then there's a help guide for dealing with suicidal thoughts. So, actually, I just clicked on one of the links and it says page not found. They need to update that. What the heck? Okay, well, it's red flag right there. Oh man, the guides for helping someone with suicidal thoughts and for dealing with them, they're not available. That's a real shame. The metanoia does work. I just clicked on it. And let's see if the WikiHow works. Okay, the WikiHow works too. So that's good. I am definitely gonna do a review. I'm gonna reach out to them and see if I can. I'm gonna bring this to their attention because we need those other links working. What the heck? But anyhow, I think the moral of the story here is not 100% perfect. I think it's still a good resource to have. I'm gonna take the approach of like something is better than nothing. And I think that's especially true if it comes to your own life and keeping you safe. And hopefully they hear me out and they address some of these things that are issues today as I record this podcast. And quite frankly, if you know of a better resource or app or something else that has been helpful to you, I would love to hear about it. You can in the post for this episode on Instagram, throw it on the comment section if you would like to remain anonymous and you want to reach out to me. I welcome you to do that, and then I can make a post so other people can find that information too. And if you want to do that, you can reach out to me at hellotraumabrain@gmail.com. I'm gonna go ahead and throw there, like, if you would like to write on your plan, Raysa needs you. Go ahead. I do need you. I think we all need each other when it comes to going through something like this. Is really important that we help support each other, that we engage in these conversations, because suicide is serious. Suicide is not a choice, and it's life-threatening, and it has taken so many lives. And I want for all of us to live and survive those dark moments. The world needs us. I need you. You need me. We need each other. And as we go through the rest of the month, I think this is something that really needs a spotlight and awareness. And I know that suicide prevention has its own day, and I think it even has its own month. But honestly, like mental health, suicide prevention, like all these topics, this is not a 1 month thing. Like this is something we should be talking about all the time. So that is my suicide safety plan. And I hope you found this episode and the resources I've shared so far helpful. In this week's healing invitation, and you probably are seeing this coming, I want to invite you to start your own suicide safety plan. If you have other people that you would like to do your plan with, honestly, I think that's a great way to do it. I feel like I kept putting it off when it was just me doing it on my own. Part of me honestly was like, I don't want to think about that. Like, I almost don't want to deal with it. And having a loved one that literally sat down with me and we both worked on it together, it did a few things. A, it held me accountable to actually get it done. B, we gave each other ideas. There were things that I thought about that she had not thought about that she added to her plan. There were other things that I was like, I don't know what to put in there. And she gave me some ideas that she was writing on her plan, and it gave me ideas for what to write. And like we really worked well, playing off each other. And I think our plans now are better because of it. And what's even better is the fact that we made them to begin with. And I invite you to give that a try. If it's hard for you to sit down and have it, if you have someone you can talk to, work through it with them, and encourage them to also have a plan. I'll say this again. I think prevention is key. We do not need to wait for someone to be in crisis mode to do something about it. Like imagine going through a crisis and you have a resource that literally is telling you step by step what to do. In addition, I would say, let the people that you add to your plan know. I've added you to my plan. If I'm going through this, you're actually on my list of people that I will be reaching out to, and see how they feel about being part of your plan. And if they don't have one, I would invite them to make one as well and offer to be in their plan if they would like to add you there too. I'm gonna be that honest with you, and this is probably something I should have talked to during the actual episode, but it's coming now, so I'm gonna say it now. I want to say my first therapist, the ones that were not trauma focused, they had heard about some of my suicidal ideations, and I never heard the word safety plan come out of their mouths. We never worked on it. It didn't happen. And I know when I started my trauma focused therapy, that was one of the first things that we discussed. Like we will have to create a plan. And interestingly so, because we've been doing the EMDR prep and so many things just keep coming up. Like I had not sat down, but now that I have it, it's just important. And quite frankly, it kind of brings me to think about how like that should be like one of the first sessions. And I'm not trying to throw therapists under the bus. Like I love my therapist, and I know that the field is still learning and is growing, but in the spirit of trying to become a part of the solution and creating awareness to these issues. Like if I had a say in terms of, things that I would change, even with my current therapists that are rock stars, to be honest, I think like every patient should do like a checklist at the beginning for the therapist to become aware of potential things that the patient might be struggling with that they haven't even mentioned or noticed or realized that they're struggling with. I would definitely at like creating a safety plan right off the bat. Like that should be like the second session. Like before we dive into anything else, we need to create this plan today, and we're gonna have it in the back of our pockets if during the sessions things get to a point where you feel like you're in a crisis. And but yeah, I know easier said than done. I know that, especially as I remember like first sessions with my therapist, like usually I am in a crisis, and the priority is like dealing with what's right in front of me to get me to process it so I can function. So I realize that some of these suggestions might not be very realistic with every single patient. However, yeah, I think there's value in reflecting back and thinking about something or how something could have been better. That's definitely in there in the list. Like if I could go back, I would say like every therapist would do a checklist. And I did some with the therapist that I am doing EMDR with. Like there were some, but not all. Like I feel like there needs to be like some sort of global checklist for everything. Because even like recently discovering that I have an eating disorder, like that has not come up at all. I didn't think it was worth mentioning. So anyway, I'm gonna reel myself back in and go back to inviting you again to work on that safety plan, to make it a priority. If you need an accountability person to help you get to the point where you're downloading the app and doing it, please reach out to them. And if you don't have anybody that you can think of, which is completely okay, that happens too, you can replay this episode and kind of download the app as I'm doing the intro and go through the steps along with me and add your own things and pause as needed. I really hope that you found this helpful so far. And please let me know how this week's healing invitation goes if you choose to accept it. Before we wrap up this episode, all music and production is courtesy of yours truly. Also, I want to share a few ways you can help support this podcast. You can subscribe and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or the platform you are using to listen. Share this episode with anyone you can think can benefit from this content. Follow Hello Trauma Brain on Instagram with the handle @HelloTraumaBrain. Subscribe to the Hello Trauma Brain YouTube channel and hit the notification bell to be the first to know when I post a new episode. And you can make a donation by getting me a coffee through the official bio site. No worries, all links will be provided in the show notes. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you found this episode helpful. I wish you the best as you begin working on your safety plan. It is time for our farewell affirmations. You are welcome to repeat after me. I am enough. I am lovable. And I deserve to heal. I wish you a gentle week, and thank you for listening.